Thomas Tucker. He's going to be just briefly chatting with you and sharing information with you. And then we have several items on our agenda that we want to be sure that you're aware of. Dr. Tucker, are you here?
Amanda, I don't think he's here yet. Let me get him the information for the meeting pretty quick. He was
okay. Perfect. Okay. Well, Employee Council, just want to let you know as we wind down the school year, we want to thank you for all of your hard work, no matter what role that you are in, whether you're in our various classified departments, whether you're on the front line in our schools supporting with remote learning, or supporting that behind the scenes to ensure that that happens for students and staff. So thank you so very much. And know that we are here in HR throughout the summer to serve and support you should any needs come up that you have. While we are waiting to move along in our agenda, I just wanted to share with the rest of the group that our open enrollment process is up and running, and that we will have that open through the 29th, I believe. And that gives our staff a full 2 weeks to review their benefit elections and ensure that they're making the right selections for their family for coverage for the coming year. So I will be sure to go into a little bit more detail and see if there are any questions relative to that. But just wanted you to be aware that if there are any supports that are needed in terms of open enrollment, that we are around to serve and support you here in Human Resources. Know that this evening, as I look at the agenda, we are going to be sharing some task force information that you may have gotten in an email, and also just reviewing any other helpful information for this important group of leaders on our employee council relative to closing out the school year, relative to anything that's been shared from our teaching and learning department and our school leadership department. Also paired with that, we will make sure that you're aware of a couple of other announcements. So we will go ahead and share a few of those. We do have a retirement ceremony planned for May 20th. May 20th will at 5 p.m. You are all welcome to listen in if that's something that you would like to do from the employee council perspective as employees. We have over 90 individuals that are retiring this year. So you'll get to see some important quotes and information from them as they reflect upon their many dedicated years with us in Douglas County. So know that we will have some live portions of that ceremony, and we really are grateful to all the individuals for their service and support to our district. And although we couldn't get together in person this year, we want to ensure that we are celebrating them as they head into their next journey. Looking at other pieces of our agenda, in terms of teacher and staff appreciation, you know, we have shared in our previous May meeting that we were very grateful and continue to be on a daily basis to our teachers and our staff, knowing that May is the official month to honor our employees and our teaching staff. However, just know that we honor you and we are grateful for you each and every day. And we're thankful to the communications staff who partnered with our wellness department in finding various ways to honor our teachers and our staff. And we had various drawings, and we'll be sure to share out with you in our upcoming Insights newsletter, in our next newsletter of, you know, who some of those individuals were that were a part of that great celebration. Going on to reentry task force information, Ms. Marlena Gross-Taylor is here to share of some of that information. Marlena, did you want to take a moment and just reiterate any information and share of anything that our great council needs to know about?
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. Let's see here. We sent an email out and we have had a great response from all of our stakeholders, from maybe some of you even, our other teachers, staff, parents, community members. So I think our task force is really shaping up nicely. If you haven't completed the application process, please make sure that you do. And if you need to search for it in your email, it's under DCSD Superintendent. So search for it that way if your email is stacking up a little bit as we try to close out the year. Also, feel free to remind your staff in your respective buildings the same, that they are welcome to apply to be part of the task force. It does close tomorrow at the end of business day. So 4 o'clock tomorrow. So please make sure you get those in before that time. And once we have closed our application process, we will go through and start creating our different pieces of our task force. One of the things in the application that I would love to just point out is that the reentry to our schools for next year, our contingency plans that we're creating, will contain several focus groups, if you will. And that question as to what area do you want to be a part of is within that application. So it's really important that people fill that information out in their application, so we'll know and have an idea of where you want to serve and where you want to plug in and be a part of. So just wanted to point that out as well. Once we have the task force together, we will start meeting as early as next week. And that's also in the information of the application, and hope to have a plan for our reentry, our restart and recovery for our district in June, towards the top of June, so we can have that. It is super important that we have as many people as possible participate and that know about this process, because it is challenging, to say the least. And we're going to need not only your feedback, but also your ideas on the task force if you're chosen to serve on the task force. So tomorrow's the deadline for that. In the coach is our, as many of you know, is our email, our weekly newsletter, if you will, to all of our licensed staff, just for our teachers, to give you updates. So you don't have to hear it through the grapevine, you get to hear it straight from us here. And within today's coach that will be coming to your inboxes in just a little bit, if it hasn't already, is also a Google form that will ask what, how you're certified if you hold a Google certification for online platforms. We want to start collecting this information so we can start truly building our teacher leaders and helping us, should we have to remain in a virtual setting, whether it's blended or completely virtual, whatever the case may be. In the fall, we want to go ahead and start lining up our training and lining up some of our amazing teachers who have gone the extra mile around this piece. So that's within the coach, as well as an update around our inventory for our curriculum. I know teachers like to have it in their hands. I know I used to like to have my curriculum in my hands, the physical copies. Now that things are starting to open up very slowly in our state, we are arranging that delivery schedule. It will happen over the summer, because we're talking about pallets and pallets of materials, of physical materials for all of our schools, that K-8. So that is coming, but all teachers should have access to the online version of all of those things. So just know that we're working really hard to do that. And as soon as we have that schedule and the deliveries are in place and we can take inventory, we'll be working with your building principals to probably do a similar process like we've been doing this week for student pickup and distribution, as well as a modified teacher checkout. We'll work with your principals to come up with a schedule where we can all continue to be safe and get those materials in your hands as well. So we are definitely working on that. And if you're getting any kind of questions around, teachers saying they're not able to get into their classrooms and they need to grab a book or grab some resource for their own personal summer planning, please refer them to the principal, because principals were able to create that schedule that's reflective of what their needs are in their building, that's aligned to all of our different guidelines that we have to adhere to be safe. So all of that information is also in the coach. So again, if you guys have any questions at all, I'll open up the floor right now. I'm happy to answer those questions, Amanda, or unless you want to wait to the end, that works.
No, that is certainly, we have time for that. So thank you for being available to answer questions. So I see a hand raised. So Denise, I'm going to, you may unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, hi Denise, great to hear your voice.
Good to see you guys. Marlena, I have a quick question about the application process for the task force that you're putting together. Before I send an email to my staff, I'd like to know what criteria are you looking for people to serve on that particular committee?
So in the application itself, Denise, you'll see several questions that we'll be looking at as we're determining what that is. So if you haven't filled it out, just to be able to see the types of questions that we're looking for, please be sure to do so. What we want to do is make sure that we have people plugged in the area that they want to be plugged in. I think that's super important. And then also see who has served. We want to make sure that we're giving everyone an opportunity to serve, right? So that's really, really important. I know so many of you here in this group wear several hats, and I applaud that. And I know we are so grateful as a district that you do that as well. And so we want to make sure that we have a diverse group from all of our regions, from all of our feeders, from all of our levels, but that's also spreading a little bit of the lift of this. So we're not taxing, just our go-to people all the time. So we'll be looking at all of those things and determining who will be on the task force. But regardless of if someone is on the task force, if they're tapped to be on it or not, everyone that applies will be a part of the process of the task force in some shape, form, or fashion. Right now, we are over almost 1,700 applicants, which is amazing. So we will make sure that everyone that has applied to be on it, again, whether they're on the official task force or not, that they're still a part of this process. So we're working through those logistics.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? What questions do you have about any that Ms. Gross-Taylor shared? Waiting to look for that hand raise. Okay. Oh, here we do have one. Mary Joy. Hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I've had people ask me questions about the task force. And right now, are you more or less with all those names and everybody who's applied, are you more looking for what they teach or what they're involved in right now? Because there really is no list. When somebody says, what exactly are you looking for? I just encourage them to fill out, the email, the phone number, and where I teach and where I live and information like that. Is that all there is right now?
No, so if you go through it completely, like I was sharing with Denise, there are some other questions as well. And so once we see who all that we have, we're best at their area of interest and our expertise is, we'll make sure that we plug them into the right spot. So again, we have over almost 1,700 applications right now. Of course, you can't have a working group with 1,700 people. So we will be working through making sure we have the right people in the right places of the areas we have to consider. But regardless if someone is chosen for specifically for the task force, everyone that is applying will certainly be a part of this process and be and share information with them as well and get their thoughts and ideas. So for sure, everyone will be included in this process. For those of you who have not had a chance to meet, you may not know me very well, but I try to be as inclusive as possible. So everyone's welcome to the table. And so we're going to work really hard to make sure that happens. And I'm really blown away by how many applicants and how many folks want to be a part of this process. So we want to make sure that we're able to honor that in a way that makes sense.
Okay. I guess for clarification, then they should not look. The task force site that was posted in our email notes from the school board meeting. When you click that, it's just a couple informational questions of your name, your email, your phone number. Should they go into a superintendent one, as you said earlier?
Correct. So on Friday afternoon,
Okay.
there was a communication sent out from the district to all of our stakeholders. So they need to click the link there, and that's the actual application that asks a few more questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And if you need to search for it, because I know I had to search for it again because I wanted to be able to talk through the click path to answer questions that a lot of people have had. If you search for DCSD superintendent in your email header in your search field, then it should pop up from Friday the 15th.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Other questions? Keeping an eye on our list here to see who has their hand raised.
Don't be shy. I know you have questions.
Any other questions? Okay, well, if something should come up, then know that we can definitely go back to that topic. I know some people just need that little bit of extra time, and I certainly honor that. We certainly do. So next, thank you, Ms. Gross-Taylor. So glad that you could make it today. Next on our topic of agenda items would be to discuss the benefits open enrollment process. So we did talk about that it has begun as of the 15th, and it will continue into the 29th. And knowing that it is a passive enrollment in that individuals, if they don't have any specific things to change, it should be a fairly quick process. And even so, it will be a quick process regardless. We're happy to share that the Office of Human Resources and Benefits branch of HR has how-to guides, has voiceover instructions, step-by-step processes. And so we're really excited to be able to offer you that support. And please know, I've shared this before and will continue to share this. If you have individuals who you know who need that support on the phone, we do offer that. We offer that on behalf of our benefits department. We want to make sure everyone has absolute access to our open enrollment process. Are there questions out there regarding open enrollment that we can serve and support you with? Chris.
Hello.
Hi, great to hear your voice.
You. I have a question that a couple of people have asked me about the PayFlex benefits, like dependent care, because we don't know how much dependent care we will need or will be available. How do we set up the amount of money to take out?
I will see. That's a great question. And I'm glad to have members of our HR leadership team on the call. Scott Barnes, are you there to share any specific information our council may need to know and pass along?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for being here. I know you're working hard on that open enrollment.
Yes. So people can set up their dependent account, and if they want to change it, they can change it down the road. If they want to start small and increase it later, they can do that.
Does that help answer your question?
Yes, I will pass that along.
Okay, thank you so much. And as we share in our next HR corner of the Insights communication, we'll be sure to put some of those helpful tips on there. We'll try and get this information out. That's a really good question. Jen, thanks for being here. How can we support you?
I guess I don't have a question so much as a comment. One thing I noticed on the email that went out announcing that open enrollment was open, it did not specifically draw attention to the fact that health premiums have changed. And so I'm worried that with it being a passive enrollment process, employees could do nothing thinking everything is the same. And then I know from me personally, my health premiums have more than tripled. So I just don't want people being surprised by that. So in nutrition services, we're kind of putting something out to all our employees, make sure you check, because the prices have changed sometimes significantly. So maybe if there's reminders sent out, it wouldn't hurt to say, make sure you check.
We will certainly do that. We thank you for that feedback. Always, we want to ensure that we are growing and learning and getting better daily. So regarding that, yes, there are our employees are going to be responsible for making their benefit selections with the knowledge of that there is a 50% of the overall premium increase, and the district passed on to them, with the district absorbing the other 50% of that. So would love to have some conversations with you, Jen, perhaps on the side to help understand your sharing about your specific experience. Knowing that once employees log into that open enrollment process, it does walk them through the new premiums and things. So just want to make
Right,
sure
but if they do nothing, it will re-enroll them in what they have, and that's when they could be surprised by something, correct?
And we will, Scott, you're welcome to jump in and share, but we will continue to send out reminders. So knowing that we've had open enrollment open for a few days, we are going to continue to monitor the numbers of individuals who've completed that process and continue to send out reminders, and we will share that on that front group of information. Anything else you wanted to add, Mr. Barnes?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay, thank you so much. Questions, needs regarding open enrollment? Okay, if something were to come up, please don't hesitate to let us know. We have next on our agenda is our input process. We want to thank you for Employee Council for your thoughts and your feedback around the budgetary information. And we asked you to participate, and you did, in 2 layers of input processes for our board consideration, also for just the overall input process as a district, knowing that we greatly value all that your perspectives are, and our board and our district, we value the input of all of our employees and our constituents. So we would love to share of a next layer regarding what is coming next. Part of that is inclusive of an update, and that is just a brief update relative to our budget that continues to evolve. I do encourage you, as you are keeping yourself informed, that you can view all this information, much more detailed information on our Board of Education website under our past board meetings. So you can tune in to be a part and listen to those board meetings. And then you can also listen to that after the fact. So we encourage you to continue to stay informed. Before we move on to that, I believe that we are honored to have Dr. Tucker here. Dr. Tucker, are you available to share some thoughts?
Yes, this is Thomas. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Glad to have you, sir.
Okay. Great. I do apologize for the extracurricular noise in the background. I shall be mercifully brief. Huge thank you on behalf of the board and our community for the outstanding work our employee council has done to help lead us through this extraordinary time. You all are certainly extraordinary people, and we look forward to doing continuous work for our district next year as we try to make sense not only of the budget, but also as we try to make sense of how COVID-19 is going to impact our school year. Many of you have already received an invitation to participate in one of our focus groups for our reentry plan. And so please don't hesitate to get your application in. So again, thank you, extraordinary people, for being just absolutely great contributors to our school district during this extraordinary time. Thank you. And Amanda, thank you for leading this heroic effort as well.
It's our honor. Thank you so much, Dr. Tucker. We're blessed to have such a great group of teacher leaders and district leaders as a part of this, and looking forward to continued partnerships in that next year. So as we shared a moment ago, we are looking for some additional layers. So in this input process regarding our budget and future considerations. So what we did was review that information, the results, and then we looked at some themes. So we're utilizing all the feedback from the various committees and groups that we saw input from, including this one. And I'm really pleased to share that our very own Matt Reynolds has developed something in partnership with other district departments in order to gather even more feedback from all of you in consideration of next steps. Before we turn it over to Matt, I would love to welcome Colleen Doan to share of any brief budgetary updates, knowing there's so much information, but she'll give us the bird's eye view of information for you to be aware of before we go into that survey tool. Colleen?
Thank you, Amanda. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
All
welcome.
right. So I will try and keep this brief. We had many hours of conversation at the board meeting last week, but kind of the state of our state is that we are looking at a 3.3 billion with a B deficit compared to the revenue projections that were released a couple of months ago. So what this means is that when the governor prepares his proposed budget, that he asks for increases to K-12, increases to higher ed, healthcare, etc. We're 3.3 billion short underneath that request. And so that's a combination of about $1 billion short in the current year from Colorado's 15% unemployment as of April, and complete, stop of our economy essentially with reduced sales tax, and then the unemployment leading to reduced income taxes to be received by the state. And the rest of it is the projection for the upcoming year. So with that, obviously that's to be shared across the entire state's budget. The K-12 makes up a huge portion of the state's general fund. In fact, in the current year, it's 37%. So when we look at, we're over a third of the state's budget, that means we're probably going to be facing a third of the cuts, or $1 billion cut to K-12. We don't know yet exactly how the legislature is going to implement that. They could run it straight through the School Finance Act. They could look at all their special programs and grants first. Essentially, there are certain things that are restricted within this Colorado Constitution and within Colorado revised statutes. But outside of that, whatever's kind of within their realm of control is open to interpretation and open to be cut or maintained within the budget. So we're modeling right now a range of potential cuts because we simply do not know. And so when it comes down to DCSD for our neighborhood schools, we're currently modeling that could be anywhere from $30 to $60 million cut, or a 7 to 15% cut to our budget. And that's excluding the pass-through to our charter schools. And again, we do not know yet. The legislature is still in a recess. The Joint Budget Committee has been meeting and reviewing the forecasts and making their projections, but until the legislature reconvenes on the 26th after Memorial Day, there will be no official vote taken. So all we can do is speculate and go off of these ranges for now and do our best to prepare our community for what those possibilities could incur, and provide as many scenarios as possible until we know more information from the state. Amanda, would you like me to go into the tool now?
Yes, that would be wonderful. Nice segue right into to the tool for input. Yes.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. If at any point in time it stops sharing, you can't see it, just holler and I'll try and figure out what's going on.
Hey, Colleen, before you jump in,
Yeah.
I know Dr. Tucker's on his phone, so I'm going to keep him unmuted and he can mute himself. But if somebody else is pressing the mute unmute button, do not, because on the phone it's very difficult to unmute yourself unless you know the codes. So whoever's co-hosting and muting him, don't.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. So you should see in front of you a spreadsheet that has quite a few numbers on it and a variety of columns. This has been presented to our principals and the Board of Education. I'm going to make a few adjustments today to reflect this updated information that I just shared with you. So this is an interactive tool that will allow you as a member of Employee Council to run various scenarios on budget cut and revenue increase options. You'll then, I'll turn over to Matt at the end of this to walk through how you then can record your data using the survey tool that he's created. But essentially, this is your planning in order to see how much making certain changes to our school district will cost. So the tool ranges in tiers based upon dollar cuts to our budget. So it goes from tier 1 at a $10 million loss up to tier 6 at a $60 million loss. So when I was talking earlier about how we're modeling between 30 and 60 now, that is included within this option. We've just recently added this tier 6 in this past week after the information that was released from the state forecast last week. You're welcome to still model tiers 1 and 2 as well, but we unfortunately don't think that our budget cut's going to be limited to those dollar thresholds anymore. So when it comes to filling it out, everything that's in this kind of like yellowish color is a cell that you can select on and change how much or how little that item is included within the cuts. So for example, this first row that I have highlighted is carryover. That's the school's carryover. This first tier right now contemplates reducing the carryover at a medium threshold, or 2.4 million. Each of these cells is a drop-down list. So I could come in here and I could say, I don't want to include it at a medium level. I want to have a smaller cut. So you select the small and it's going to change that dollar threshold. You could also say, I want to include it at a larger amount, put in the large, and it's going to change it up to 6.2 million. So each of these are interactive. If it says no planned use, what that means is you're not including it within your list of cuts. So for example, it's saying at this tier 1, there's no planned use of implementing a 4-day school week. We would not have a 4-day school week under this setup. But if you wanted to see how much would that cost, you simply change it in the model. So you can go through each of the different options. There's 30 in total between budget cuts and revenue increases. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's this surplus deficit line. So this is the line you want to aim to get closest to 0. A green positive number is good and a red negative number is bad. So I changed that carryover number, which put this into a surplus of $5 million. If I go back up to that carryover cell, and let's say I change it to small, you'll see that there's now a deficit of $541,000. That means your budget is out of balance by $541,000. So if you were to do nothing else, you would have to cut an additional $541,000 from the budget. So this tool has an associated definitions tab over here. So you can click on that tab to see a description of what any of those items mean. For example, carryover, it says what carryover is, and then it says what that impact is. The impact is really important because I want to point out that this is a list of a whole bunch of different options and ways we could do things, but there are some that will have the same effect upon our school district. For example, if you're a school, if you happen to be at a school that has had declining enrollment over the period of time, both a reduction to the site-based budget pupil allocation and a reduction in staffing to align with enrollment reduction would have the same outcome of having a reduction in the total dollars passed through your SBB, which may then both impact something like class sizes or staffing at the school. So it's really important to look at what that impact of use is, so that if you're building your options, you're not focusing them on items that are all going to have the same effect and be double dipping into the same dollars for multiple different purposes. Also noted in here, whether that is a one-time or an ongoing, so that's a new feature that wasn't in the version shared with principals, which basically will show you whether making this change will get you through potential multi-year recession, or if it's a one-time thing that once we make the cut, we'll be back looking for additional dollars the following year, unless the budget situation were to improve. So feel free to ask me any questions on this call if you want to know more information about how to use it. Also happy to take any emails. If you just want to think about it overnight and send me an email, I'm happy to respond. But it's really for your use. You don't have to submit it back. We'll talk next steps on what it means when we gather your data, but it's really just in order to put context behind some of the options in order to prioritize to close that budget deficit. So with that, I want to see if there are any questions from the group, just use of it, maybe what some of the terminology means. So it looks like Amy McCarty raised her hand.
Yes. Just trying to. Amy, are you there? Hi, Amy.
Just had a quick question about the small, medium, and large.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm looking at carryover, for example, and I'm in the, is small, medium, large, is that the 369 amount?
Yes, it is. So our current carryover, there's no limit to the percentage of discretionary budget our schools can carry over. However, our Board of Education policy on the budget recommends a 3%. So it looks at taking carryover and capping it at 9%, then capping it at 6%, and then capping it at the Board of Education policy recommendation of 3%. So that's the difference between those three.
Okay, and all of those, the small, medium, large, extra large, I assume are explained in the definitions. I didn't look at all of them, but like for furlough days, small would be 1 day, medium 2 days, large 3 days. Is that how I'm reading that?
That's how you are reading it, yes. They might not all go into an extensive level of detail. So
Okay.
if there are any that anyone has any further questions on it, they'd like more information, I'd be happy to answer those either here, time permitting, or if you were to email me, I'd be happy to reply with more information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Colleen.
Hi, Amanda. This question may be more directed to you, but I just saw some information on this budget tool, and one of the lines says reduced HSA contributions to employees. Yep, right there. And I'm wondering if we make our benefit selections based on HSA amounts that are quoted right now, and then that should happen to take place, would there be an option in the future after the deadline of May 29th to change our benefit selections if that does end up coming to fruition?
Thank you for that question. Scott Barnes.
So the question was, can they change their selections after May 29th?
In terms of the HSA contributions, knowing that we have that in some of the budget tool that individuals may work with.
Yeah, so Scott, to give you some timeline a little bit, our adopted budget will not be voted upon by the Board of Education until June 23rd. So if they were to decide to not implement any of the budget cuts until June 23rd, obviously that's after the open enrollment period ends.
Right. You can change your HSA elections at any time.
My question is, if currently on the HSA plan with the high deductible, the school district offers $100 a month. And if that changes, then could we change our election based on on that dollar amount?
No, that would not be considered a qualifying event to change your plan.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'd have to make that decision during open enrollment.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Thank you. Other individuals who have questions, you can either hit the raise your hand button, or you may do *9 if you're on your phone. Any other questions about this tool? Okay. Thank you, Colleen.
Sure. And again, if you happen to think of something later, I would be more than happy to answer your question via email if you just want to send an email my way.
Thank you. As always, Employee Council know that we are accessible, and you may email us. You all have my phone number, so whatever we can do to help answer those questions for you. And thank you for being those conduits of communication as well. So from there, we naturally will, thank you, Colleen, again, we naturally will shift over to Matt Reynolds, who can share more about what that input process looks like, that layer 2 process. Matt, thanks for joining us this evening.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk. And thank you for projecting up the instrument up on the screen. So we have created an instrument that supports the spreadsheet document that was just displayed on the screen. So they're used in tandem. So as you are working with the spreadsheet and you're making different elections on there for different models, whether it's the 10 or the 60 or anything in between, as you make those decisions on that spreadsheet, you have the opportunity to weigh in on your support of these different options that are on the list. And so you're going to receive a copy of this, and actually it's already in your inbox. We sent it out before the meeting started. It's an email that's coming from Qualtrics, which is the title at the top there. They're the software that we use to administer surveys. So you'll have it come in your inbox. If you can't find it in your inbox, please reach out and we'll make sure that we can send it back again. It comes to you specifically. Members of the Employee Council got this link in their email. And it's going to ask you a couple of different questions right off the bat. One of them is going to ask you to pick, we're going to use this same instrument for multiple committees. And so it's going to ask you to identify which committee you're part of. And then the next set of questions is the budget cut options, which is the very top of the spreadsheet that was just listed. And for each of these different options, it's asking for your level of support. Now, as Colleen mentioned earlier, the dollar amounts have shifted, and they remain shifted based on what we know and more importantly, what we don't know from our state. And so instead of putting actual dollar amounts on here, we're using this in tandem of that. So you can see the actual modeling as it occurs on the spreadsheet. Once you have a chance to play with those numbers, you come to the survey and then indicate your level of support for each of these different options. So the first part is all about the budget cut options. And again, if you want to see the definitions for each of those, you can either look at the spreadsheet or you can click within the survey here and it gives you a definition page for each of those. So if you wanted a description of what it means for carryover, you click on that little click here and it's going to link you to a page that's going to give you a description of what that looks like. If we scroll down just a little bit more, this runs through all of the different options that are on the spreadsheet. So the top part is all of the budget cuts. And then it separates into the bottom part, which is the revenue increases. And again, it's got another section for you to click on the definitions if you're unclear about what it means. Let's say to establish corporate sponsorships, you click on that little click here, and it's going to give you a definition of each of those. So at the very end of the survey, there is a spot for you to give your open-ended feedback, questions, or concerns about what you see on the survey or about what you see on the spreadsheet. So you have an opportunity to provide some additional feedback that's not constrained to just those 30 options. Any questions regarding the survey?
What questions are out there? As you have heard before, while we're waiting for people to think up those questions, as you've heard before, this is your chance to have your voice heard. This is your chance to ensure that you are participating in that input process. So greatly encourage you to do so. We do have some individuals that have raised their hand. Just tracking them down in our attendees. They did and then they didn't. What questions are out there? Vanessa. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, Amanda. I answered my own question. I was looking to see when it needed to be submitted by, and I opened the email and it told me.
Wonderful.
Great reminder. It is closing this Friday, and I believe it's this Friday at midnight.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. It sounds like there's a chunk of time to do that, so that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Other questions about this process? Vera. Hi, Vera.
So if you have a large number of choices where people are voting for huge numbers of things to reduce the budget, how are you going to pick and choose which of those? So for example, you've got 25 choices of how to reduce the budget and everybody chooses 23 out of those 25. There's more than enough to reduce the budget. How are you going to pick and choose?
Thank you for that question. Matt, any sharing of your wisdom regarding survey interpretation and results gathering for sharing forward?
Absolutely. We're going to be sharing the results of this survey with our Board of Education after we have all committees filling this survey out. So they'll be able to see the feedback that's being provided via this instrument. A similar process was done with our principals. So they'll have all of that information at their hand. Staff, we will put together a budget recommendation for our Board of Education as well. So they'll have the feedback and they'll also have our recommendation. And in creating our recommendation, we'll also look at these survey results.
Okay, thank you for that. And thanks for your question, Vera. Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hi, I apologize if I missed this. I have the email with the survey in it, but how do I get to the actual budget tool?
That can be sent out via email. So I did share that with Shauna. Shauna, would you be able to pass that along to the employee council?
Sure, I can do that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate that. Mary Joy.
I'm looking over the survey and I realize we have to make some hard decisions, but some of these areas are kindergarten and areas like that. I'm just glad I'm not a PR person in the district these days. Some of these areas are really new and I don't see that we have a lot of site-based data to make a determination. Do you have any idea on, what impact will employee council have in knowing which way we're going to drive some of these decisions? Are we sharing it with the school board and then from the school board it goes there and we're a piece of the discussion? I just look at some of these areas, there's a lot of information on field trips about cutting them back and everything like that. And to me, that makes perfect sense. It's that may be on the list of possibilities, but some of these areas are so brand new that I just don't see, I guess I'm a little bit confused on how to make a determination. Would it be easier to just cut back something that's brand new and take it on later as hopefully the money increases? I would just like a little bit of confirmation on that or clarity.
Thank you for that question. So I can definitely share in terms of process. So we are grateful to be able to include the voices of employee council as part of the overall feedback process. Knowing that employee council is a group of individuals that are able to share their perspectives and their feedback for consideration towards a decision making. We're also seeking input from the various other committees, DAC, FOC, and so know that all of this information will be shared and shared forward for Board of Education's review and consideration in their decision.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Vera, I see that you have your hand raised.
Sorry about that. I accidentally clicked on the wrong thing. Sorry.
Not a problem. So I see Chris. Hi, Chris. Chris, did you want to share?
Yeah, I think mine clicked wrong. I didn't think mine was clicked, but I clicked it, I guess. Sorry.
Okay, hey, not a problem. Not a problem. Any other questions? Hi, Kim. How are you?
No, I'm muted or unmuted. There we go. Okay.
We hear you. Yep.
So
Hi.
a lot of different things. I'm muted. I'm unmuted. This may be in the tool in the definitions, Colleen, that you provided, but I know one of the ones I was wondering about was land sale. Is there more details about whom, what entities could purchase that land? Because I think that there's some ramifications around selling off land. Could be a big ticket item for us, but might have ramifications later on down the line that could be harmful, but I don't know all the details. So I would need more, and I just haven't looked at the tool yet.
So we don't have that level of detail in the tool about who could buy the land, how to sell it off. Essentially right now, part of the land we have title to, and some of it other jurisdictions have title to, but in our name. So we would have to gain title from them, let's just say Town of Castle Rock as an example, and go through all the due diligence associated with that before we could get it appraised and before we could actually go and sell the land. So right now, the range from the small to large is purely based upon an estimate of these various plats, some of which we hold title to and some that we do not.
And maybe just for clarification, this land, I guess I don't know what the ramifications are as far as who could purchase this land. One of my wonderings is if this land, if we sell it, hoping that we gain money from it, but perhaps it's purchased by a charter school, which we support, but yet money funnels from our, the money we get from the state to charter schools. I wonder if something like that might have a negative impact down the line, while up front it might look like a positive impact financially. Those are some of the things that I was just kind of wondering about. And I'm sure any item that's on there might have those ramifications. So it's tricky. We're doing our best guess, I guess, to provide input without knowing all the later on down the road ramifications.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Anything else relative to this? Any items on our agenda? Anything else that we can do to serve and support you? I know you're in your last week. We're in checkout week. There's a lot going on. Instructional support's going on. How can we support you? What can we do? I don't hear of anyone out there who wants to share, but please know on behalf of myself, our department, our district, we thank you, Employee Council, for all of your hard work and dedication this year and always, not only to the group, but also to each and every one of your roles and what you do each day. Know that as you head into your last week or so, reach out to me if we can support you in any way. If there's anything that you see that needs any additional clarity on our part, always willing to do and be better. If you have any other needs, please reach out. We are blessed to have Dr. Tucker to share some last thoughts here before we adjourn for the school year. And know that as you try to tackle that survey tool, please reach out if you need any clarification or support. Dr. Tucker?
Yes, as Amanda just said, folks, we're here to work with you, to work with our entire school community to make sense of this tough situation, to make sense of this tough financial situation. But we know in the very end, we're always going to do what's in the best interest of our students, our staff, and our community. And again, I want to thank all of you for listening in. I want to thank our great employee council. I know we've had some times over the course of this year where we've had some tough things to tackle. Mm-hmm. Public education is a tough, it's a tough entity, but we're working hard every day to improve the lives and save the lives of our 68,000 students. And as I said earlier, you all are extraordinary people doing extraordinary work. So I certainly thank you for that. But also take some time as we close out the school year, take some time to relax, spend some time having fun with family members and friends, and get recharged, because when we come back in the summer, we're going to have some of these same battles that we need to fight, and we can only overcome those battles. We can only do that with your help. So again, thank you to our great Douglas County School District community, and let's close out this year in grand form. And if you get a chance to root on the class of 2020, please do so. We have a ton of graduation ceremonies coming up, and we're just happy that we're able to do something to recognize the hard work of the class of 2020, and obviously you, our staff. Have a great summer, and we look forward to rejoining in the fall.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker. And on that note, yes, exactly all that he said. We are grateful for all of you, and we wish you a healthy, safe, and happy summer. Please reach out if we can support you. Everyone have a great evening. Our meeting's officially adjourned.